Alright, so first and foremost, I'll start off by saying Barakathon, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole few elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom. Lord willing, we're finna go into, who endured the suffering. And this title just came to me because I think I mentioned in my last lesson as I was watching the old video, the elders that was going into the Genesis 2 breakdown, and when it going to the word Eden, and the Eden is going to the word pleasure. Matter of fact, let's turn it off real fast. Bear with me. All right. Eden goes into the word pleasure, right? And when you understand it, the world was made for our pleasure, or for the I got right here in my notes, for the likening of men, right? Bear with me. All right, I got right here in my notes, right? Because when the world was created, it was created for the pleasure of men, for the enjoyment of men. It's like that's the word I'm looking for the enjoyment of men. And and as we know, quick precept real fast while I go to Romans. It's 2 Esdras 6 in verse 54, if I'm not mistaken. I read verse 54, it says, and after these, Adam also, whom thou made as Lord of all thy creature. Because, Adam named creatures and whatnot. Of him come we all, and the people whom thou hast chosen. Right? But you got to understand, the Most High has chosen people, and that's who? Right? The Israelites, right? The nation of Israel. Right? Right? But you have the chosen people, which is who? Israelites, right? The 12 tribes. But verse 55 says, all this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou hast made us the world for our sakes. And, the world was made for our sakes. Eden, right? Pleasure, right? For the pleasure of man, for the enjoyment of man, right? But, if you understand it, I want to read this in the NLT as well. If you understand it, right, Adam, so I got a little brain for Adam, right, is the same spirit as Yahweh Shah, right? And when you understand it, the Most High calls Adam, he allowed the Eve to be deceived and later deceiving Adam. That was the Most High doing. It was all set up in his way, right? This is Genesis 3 and 5 real fast. It says, for Yahweh doeth know that the days, it's like, for Yahweh doeth know that in the day you eat thereof, meaning not necessarily eat, but at eat is meaning learn, right? Well, Ezekiel tell the nation of Israel, eat the whole roll. Well, Yahweh Shah say, I will come sup with him. The sup means supper, dinner, right? So you this eat is referring, spiritually is referring to, learn this knowledge, gain this knowledge, right? Eat the whole roll, right? But it says for Yahweh doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, meaning you learn thereof, right? So when they deceive, right? She didn't eat no apple. She learned the ways of evil. She learned the ways of wickedness, right? So the Most High said, the day you learn thereof, going into, when Eve learned the ways of wickedness and later deceiving Adam, which learned these ways, right? It said, then your eyes shall be open. And he said, be as gods, knowing good and evil, right? Because to be a proper God, you have to know good and evil, right? How can you ever know the truth if you never understand the lie? How can you be a proper God if you never went through hardship or things of that such, right? How can you know that you won't go off if you ain't never been in this position that you won't go off? You know what I'm saying? Because before we was known as the sons of power, right? And us being known as the sons of power, we ain't know no wrong. We ain't know no iniquity, right? That's why the Most High allowed for Adam to be deceived, right, and bring sin on all men, right? To see, right? Because in this world today, the world was made for our sakes, right? But as you can see, we having hardship. We having, we having afflictions. We having sufferings that we facing every day. We're the bottom. We're the lower low, right? We're having all this trouble and things we're facing every day, right? But the world's made for our sakes. But understanding though, Yahweh seeing how Shai did this because why? Going back to Jeremiah 2, right? When we had the name, right? When our nation had the name of Yahweh, and we call upon Yahweh, we'll be amongst captivity under this nation, and we call on the name Yahweh, and He'll deliver us. Well, each time He delivers, what Jake do? Jake go back and do the same thing, right? Because when Jake got that free will, Jake go do what he want, right? And Jake fulfilled the pleasure of his lust, of his flesh. He don't do the will of Yahweh Shai. So therefore, the Most High put us in a position, right? Going all the way back to the garden, we allowed to go off. So now we know good and evil. Now we know right from wrong, right? That was established with Him giving us the law of His commandments. But understanding the main thing is you got to get out the way of this flesh. You can't move in the mindset of this flesh. You can't move in the way of this flesh, right? So this is Romans 8, because you got to understand we're under the curses. But this is Romans 8, verse 20. Right? It says, against its will, all creatures, right? It's like it, all creations. Against His will, all creation was subject to Yahweh's curses. But with eager hope, the creation, right, which is us, and these fleshly bodies, look forward to the day when it will join Yahweh's children, right? And glorious freedom from death and decay. Meaning what dies and decays? This flesh. So we will be delivered from this flesh because this flesh is subject to go off, right? That's why the law is spiritual, right? The law is spiritual because we're not going to be able to keep the laws perfect, right? But that's why when you understand it, we're sent down here to do what? Endure the suffering, endure the pain, endure the hardship, right? Right here, Romans 7:14. But we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, so under sin, right? So the laws are spiritual, right? The Most High, Most High know we can't keep all laws and commandments perfect, right? But that's why He sent Yahweh Shai down here, right, to show us His will, not to be in the mindset of the flesh. That's why Jake can understand the parable. That's why Jake can understand Yahweh Shai, because Jake was in the mindset of the flesh. Even today, that's why Jake can't receive this knowledge and understanding, because they think they're in the flesh. A natural man cannot receive the spiritual things, right? We're not of the flesh. We're thinking the way we Yahweh Shai. And that's why we able to endure the suffering, endure the pain. See, Yahweh Shai set that up to see who rock, because when everything good, right? Hey, Jake ready to, Jake ready to rock out. You know what I'm saying? Jake pray, Jake doing that. But when things get bad, Jake find his own way or go any other way to get back comfortable. And you see that now today, right? Jake don't necessarily know our true history, our true knowledge, our understanding, but look what Jake doing, right? Jake running to these churches. Jake doing everything to try to feel comfortable down here in America, right? But we understand that Eden, right? The world's made for our pleasure. But before we get to that, before we get back in our position, because we was in position, we was glorious, right? That's why the scriptures say in Haggai, right? The glory of the former house and the glory of the latter house is gonna be way more glorious than the former house, because we was glorious back then, but we're gonna be way more glorious in the kingdom to come, right? But Yahweh Shai had to see who really rocking with him, right? It's like when Satan and Job chapter 1, when Satan was going to test Job, he tell him like, hey, this man got all the things this man got everything good, everything going good for him. Let something bad happen to him and he gonna curse you, he gonna go against you. Well, when things got bad, when things got hard, what did Job do? Job didn't curse the Most High. Job kept his patience. He kept his faith. He endured the suffering that came with it because he understood that Yahweh Shai bring him through. See, Jake run to the church. Jake run to, what's what we're looking for? Jake run to the church. Jake run to the drugs. Jake run to sell drugs. Jake go to steal. Jake go do all these things except keeping that faith and Yahweh Shai to be delivered, right? That's why understanding, right? The Most High said, right? Sirach 2, verse 1 says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptations. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure and make not haste in a time of trouble, right? Cleave unto him, depart not away, that thou may be increased at thy last end. That's what Jake don't understand. See, Jake wanted everything now, right? But understanding, going all the way back to the garden when Adam went off, right? When Adam went off, right? And things as such, right? Now they know good and evil. So Adam go off and bring his sin, right? And you see our nation now, our nation go off, right? Our nation void, our nation disrespect Yahweh Shem Shah, our nation go against the word of Yahweh Shem Shah, right? But let me see how. We're gonna read it in the KJV. Let's go to Romans 5. But we understand it. Adam, the one who brought sin, right, is gonna be the same one who brings honor and glory. The same one who's gonna bring righteousness, right? So it's Romans 5, right? And we're gonna start at verse. Let's see. We'll start at verse 12, right? It says, when Adam sinned, sin entered the world. Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone for everyone's sin. Yeah, it's in NLT. Yes, people sin even before the law was given, right? So now they sin even before the law was given. We was on this other power. Now he was sin for even before the law was given, right? It says, but it was not counted as sin because there was not yet any law to break. Still, everyone died from the time of Adam to the time of Moses. Even those who did not disobey a split commandment of Yahweh as Adam did. Now, Adam is a symbol and representation of Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, who was yet to come, right? But there is a great difference between Adam's sin and Yahweh's gracious gift. For the sin of this one man, Adam brought death to many. But even greater is Yahweh's wonderful grace and his gift of forgiveness to many through this other man, which is Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Because you got to understand, see, Adam brought sin, right? As you read, Adam brought sin for the law was given, right? But that's why the Most High gave us the laws and commandments, right? To separate these things. The law is spiritual. He gave us the commandments to separate these things, to separate the good and the bad of Leviticus 20:25, to separate all unclean things upon the earth, all of it, right? So when he gave us the laws and commandments, now he gave us the good way, right? But he also showing us is the evil way too. Hey, don't eat pork, that's evil, right? Don't eat pork, that's righteous. To eat pork is evil, right? So now they got a choice to know good and evil, right? To be a proper God is to do the righteous way, but know the evil way, right? So they know what's wrong and know what's right, right? But you still have Jake do what? Jake still choose the way of what he want in his flesh. He chooses the way what fulfills him instead of fulfilling the will of Yahweh Yahweh Shai. But understanding, going to the title at hand, who will endure that suffering. And part of that suffering is understanding, person not the way of their flesh, person not the way of your own will, enduring the hardship, enduring the pain, enduring the curses. Understanding we under the curses. Hey, we put ourselves in this position. So therefore, we got to set our heart to face temptation. We got to set our heart to go through these things: hardship, pain, right, persecution, right. And you can't get down. You can't get down and give up, because that's why the Most High said, Yahweh Shai said, he that shall endure to the end. He didn't say endure to the end because it was going to be a walk in the park. He said endure to the end because there was going to be a lot of pain and suffering that comes with this truth. Cutting off family, cutting off friends, right? You cutting off your whole way of life, right? Separate from people that you've been around forever, right? Separate from things that you've been doing forever. But now that you know the evil way, now that you know the good way, who will endure that suffering for the good way? Who gonna scribe in the right ways of Yahweh Yahweh Shai, which come with a lot because we're not of this world. And when you understand the suffering is, you see this guy, he having money, glorious, he doing all these things, but he doing it in the evil way. Well, you might be having a hard time keeping the bill paid, or you having a hard time going to work as they keep things handled. But you gotta understand, hey, that's the position that we in, right? That's the position that we in right now, right? Understand that the curses, us going off, being in captivity, that's the position we in right now. Who gonna endure that suffering to stay down there and do the will? Who not gonna stop working and go sell drugs to get fast money? Who gonna do this and that, to get by and such? Who gonna understand that it's suffering that we're not supposed to have it good down here? Think not exchange when the fiery trial, because that's when you know the spirit how I see how I'm dealing with you. But the point being, me reading this, right? It's lucky for the, all the talking. But the point being, me reading this, right? Verse 12 again, it says when Adam sinned, sin entered the world, right? Even though sin brings forth death, right? It says Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone for everyone's sin. Yes, people sinned even before the law was given, but now we have the law. Now we have it, and it wasn't done away with, right? We're not saved by the law. We saved, right? We saved by faith and grace, but we made perfect. We're not made perfect through the law. We made perfect through our sufferings, purging out that way, rehearsing the righteous act, and that suffering come in all type of ways, man. Within its truth, it's gonna be a hard thing, right? It says, but it's not counted as sin because there was not yet any law to break. But now we have the good way and the bad way. So now we have the law. Now we have the things. That's why Yahweh said, Slack. That's why Yahweh said, what more can I do to my vineyard? The things that are pleasing, Isaiah chapter 5. He also said in Baruch, the things that are pleasing to the Most High made known unto us. Now we have the laws and commandments. Now we have these things, right? Yahweh came and showed us the light. Yahweh came and showed us how to give ourselves up and do the will of the Father. Get out the way of the flesh. So now, who gonna endure? So now who gonna take on that suffering? Who gonna try to lay hand? Who will endure that suffering, man? Who will take that suffering on the chin, right? Who ain't gonna fold within this truth? One more quick precept. We'll end it. Just want to get this in. It's on my mind all day, right? It was on my mind all day. I want to go into it, but was had a lot going on with meetings and things of that such. But Lord, we're gonna get the works done, God willing. But the point, it was on my mind all day because when you understand it, man, even going all the way back to Adam once again, man. Right before Adam, when we were known as the sons of power, we was those angels. We were the angels, right? Elohim, right? The gods, the angels, right? The judges. We were those angels, right? That helped Yahweh build the earth, right? And we was known as sons of power, right? When it came in the fleshly form, the flesh is subject to vanity, subject to flesh to go off. And once again, the law is spiritual. So now the flesh, with the flesh going off, that's why the Most High let Adam be deceived. So he let Adam be deceived. So now Adam can know within the flesh. Now Adam can know what's right and what's wrong. And later on, go and spread to the whole world. The laws and commandments, we get the laws and commandments from, the Most High get the laws and commandments to Moses. The Most High set for the things for us to do. Now we know these ways. And now he's telling us, hey, you do these things, you receive the promise. You do these things, you receive the curses. So now we know the good and the bad, right? But people still did what? People disobeyed. So now it's set up to see who's going to stay focused on that straight gate. Who's going to stay focused on the straight and vain things. Straight and vain things is what? Being a plain man within this world. Not trying to build no crazy life. Not trying to do all these things, that this world try to offer. Right? And I'm in the NLT with it just because I like to bring it out back. I like to bring out both on NLT, right? So, but just where the Spirit leads me at time. This is Matthew 7:13, right? It says you can enter Yahweh's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad. It is, and its gate is wide for many who choose that way. But the gateway to life is very narrow. And what's life? To be spiritually minded is life. To be carnal minded is death, right? Romans chapter 8. You gotta think spiritual, right? It says, but the gateway to life is very narrow and the road is difficult. And only a few ever find it, the tree in its first fruit. Gotta understand, only a few find it, man. Only a few can endure that suffering and stay focused and endure on the straight and vain things. Ain't meaning that can do it, right? One more quick piece of right here, 2nd Ezra 7:11, right? It says, because for their sakes, right, I made the world, Eden, pleasure of men, right? Supposed to be for the pleasure of men, enjoyment of men, right? And when Adam transgressed my statutes, because it was told, hey, don't go don't learn them ways. It was when they did it. So it says, when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed and now it's done, right? Because the world was made for our sakes. But that's why the Most High said this world was made for many, but the world to come is for few. Because the world to come is the kingdom, and that's for the ones who, if you read up, right, who endure the suffering, who endure pain, who purge out the will of their own self and endure the suffering, endure the pain, so therefore they can build themselves up. That's why you got desire to sensitive milk. As we grow into spiritual man, right, you can't play Yahweh outside. You can't get off. It's not like the world. This ain't in the world. You can fake it till you make it. Now you got to really prepare yourself within this truth, man. You got to prepare yourself because it's gonna be dangerous times. It's gonna be dangerous times to come. Jacob trouble, all type of things. It's gonna be harsh times. So we're gonna get to a point to where you're gonna see a lot of sincere men who we thought was sincere in the truth fold taking the chip. But they don't want it hard. They ain't gonna be able to go them days without eating, things of that such. You know, and when we say these things, people think of the life we got right now. Now we let you know, Jacob's trouble's coming. It's gonna be a lot of things coming. The chip is coming. You're not gonna be able to buy or sell if you don't take the chip. It's things ahead. That's why these scripts that we talk about. That's why in the scripts that we prepare ourselves through the spirit power, how about seeing how through the scripts is knowledge and understanding. So that way, when these things happen, we are already prepared for them. You know, when you play sport, you work out in the off season to prepare for the season. Right? Well, this is the off season. Right? We preparing because when the season come in, with Jacob trouble and all these times hit when war going on, it ain't gonna just be no walk in the park how America got it. Got it right now. The land, quote unquote, the land of the freedom. If you don't take that chip, you won't be able to buy, sell, eat, none of that. If you don't do their way, they gonna throw you in camps. They gonna do all these things. Who gonna do that suffering, man? Right? But the point being, let's see. Take Ezra 7:11. Because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, that was decreed and now it's done. The entrance of this world were made narrow, full of sorrow, trivial. They are few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrance of the elder world were wide and sure and brought immortal fruit. If then they that live labor not to enter these great and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. Because you had it good, but you was easily deceived, right? So now you got it hard. You got it harsh. You got all this pain and suffering. Is you going to endure that to get, because when things are good, you rocking. But now when things hard, suffering, pain, sorrow, is you going to stay focused on the will of Yahweh Shah and do the work that he said for us to do? Then you shall receive the kingdom, right? Know what he said, 2nd Ezra 16, right? They should be tried as gold is tried. Then shall we know who am I chosen. Right? Most I got to see who really rocking with them, man. Right? So, Lord willing, I want to get that done. That was on my spirit. You got to endure that suffering, man. Hey, that's part of it. You'll never know who someone is till adversity hits. Right? Until adversity hit, now you really see their true character. Now you really see their true color. Everything good, everybody happy. Everybody will do it. Right? But when times get hard, hey, you see who really rocking with you, man. So that being said, who will do that suffering, man? I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the hopeful elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom.